Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Fix Your BS podcast, where we're all about belief systems and we explore those belief systems of the most successful people in the 5 major pillars: relationships, business, career, finances, health, and faith. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Versley, also known as Dr. G. And today we have one of my favorite people. I watched him speak earlier this year about investments. His name is Austin Zelan. He's an American businessman, investor, TEDx speaker, and philanthropist. Throughout his career, he's always focused on adding on productivity and efficiency, finding ways to have more positive impact with his work. This has allowed him to do a few things, but simultaneously run multiple companies that are very successful. And he was able to pursue his PhD and serve on several executive boards as well. He has a passion to help others grow and achieve more. Austin currently coaches students from around the world to increase their impact while decreasing inefficiencies. He helps each student create 6 figures in passive income through his mentorship program. This proven framework creates generational wealth for his students and allows them to take back control of their time. This has allowed him to shape the investment space to become more efficient and more lucrative for investors. And he had a great presentation, and so excited that you have joined us here on the Fix Your BS podcast to talk primarily, I'm sure, about finances, but we'd really like your insights in any of those pillars, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, man, give me a little bit of backstory about, let my audience know about how you got to where you are. You're really successful. You're really young. And most people don't find those two things together. So tell us a little bit about you and how you got there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing I think is just being focused. So for me, it was focusing early on the things that I knew I wanted to get out of life. And so that meant I had to say no to a lot of things. So what I find is that a lot of times the things that you say no to are actually the things deciding how your life goes or how successful you are, what you achieve, because there's so many things, so many opportunities to do so many different things at any given point in time. And so if you can learn how to say no to the things that don't get you closer to your goal, then you're definitely on the right track. And so if you just continue down that pathway, you can get there faster. So for me, that was business. I knew I wanted to be in business. I knew I wanted to be in investments. And so initially started out in corporate America. I was working a marketing job at a startup, did that for a while. Then I went to Microsoft, worked there for about 2 years. And this whole time though, I was starting to realize that all these dream jobs that I had, all these things that I thought I wanted out of life wasn't exactly true. I didn't want to work at a big corporate office. It was cool for a while, but I didn't really want that. I wanted to do more with my life. I wanted to achieve bigger things, and I felt like my potential and my creativity was limited by this job. So I started to seriously look for ways on how I could still make all the money that I want to make, but without being tied to a 9-to-5 career. So this whole time I was learning how to do different types of investments. My first one was in the Forex industry. So I started trading foreign exchange currencies, and I got pretty good after a while. My first year was awful. I just lost a bunch of money. But after that, I learned some very expensive and valuable lessons, and I started to become a lot more profitable and, most importantly, consistently profitable, because profitable for a day or two, but maintaining that consistency is really what allows you to maybe exit a job or change career, whatever it is. So for me, once I got to that point, I started looking for ways to then automate it, because at this point I was staying up all night trading. I'd work 9 to 5, come home, take a little nap, and then I'd start trading around 10 p.m. So I trade from 10 until 2 a.m. At 2 a.m., I'd take a nap until 4 a.m., well, like 3:55. And I'd wake up for the 4 a.m. candles, and then I'd be awake 4 to 6, and then I took another little nap before my job started in the morning. So I'd literally be trading all night, and it was going really well. So it was worth it, but I definitely wanted to find a way that I could kind of distance myself from that and not have to actively create all that income, because at the end of the day, it's become another job. So this resulted in my trading software, which I created. And it basically took my trading strategy and it automated the whole thing. So I didn't have to do anything. The computer just traded my strategy over and over and over again whenever it saw the conditions being met. So that gave me an automated stream of income. And eventually I grew that, started licensing it out to people. And it got to the point where my lifestyle had changed significantly at this point. And I realized, hey, this is very risky because all my money is coming from one income stream. So now I'm thinking about diversification. Now I want stability. I want safety. So I started looking for other things that I could invest in. And I was just investing left and right. Anything I could possibly find to invest in, I was in on it. Oil wells, exotic cars, Bitcoin miners, like literally anything. And so I was just investing into all these things. And thankfully, I had a lot of active income coming in. So even if something didn't work out, it was fine. But over that time period, I kind of figured out which things work and which things don't. And so for me, now I have this like basket of investments that I know have worked for me. And that's kind of how my program was born. So I know what's worked. I know what's likely to continue working. And so now I'm just sharing what's been working for me. And my students have been very successful just kind of taking those ideas, doing their own research, and implementing it in their portfolios.
Yeah, and I've been really impressed. I've talked to some of the students and seen some of the things that they've done. And, I love that you're all about making sure that they're having the same successes that you're having. One of the things about investing, I mean, living the dream life is literally what you're talking about, right? Where you're making more money with your investments than you're spending, and you're infinitely rich, with time. And that's where everybody's trying to get to. And most people, especially in America, have this idea that save a little bit of money, put it in the stock market, and you do that for 30 years, and hey, you can retire. What is your perspective on that? Obviously, it's different, but what is your perspective on that, and how did you go against that tradition?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, I wanted to find out if there was a better way. And it took a lot of trial and error, a lot of heartbreak and losing money and all these different things and struggle to figure out that, hey, it is possible, but it's just not easy. And so somebody has to go out there and figure out all these things that do work. Because if you think about it, if somebody wants to exit their 9-to-5 job, or they just want to become an investor, there are so many things standing in your way. Where are you going to get enough capital? Number one. Number two, how do you know that this investment is going to work? How do you know that it's the right one for you? Has anybody tried it? Like, the likelihood of you being successful with an investment is maybe 60 or 70%. With an untrained eye, if you're brand new, maybe 40 or 50%. But as an experienced investor, my entire portfolio is still maybe only 70% accurate. That means I still lose money on about 30% of my investments. And there's just nothing that you can do to avoid that. There's no investor in the world who's 100% accurate. So what if you chose an investment that's in that 30% of losing investments, right? Like, there's so many things that stand in the way of between like people and that financial freedom, the time freedom. So for me, it was just trial and error. And I found the ones that do work. And so I think that really getting focused with what you want out of it, and accelerating that using different like resources and getting access to capital and all these things, that information is out there. And so getting it together in one spot is definitely a huge help for somebody, because they can just tap into that information and start working aggressively towards those goals.
That's awesome. And I love that you're just going against the traditional ways, because, that just, people don't realize, I talk about it all the time, that time is your most valuable asset. And people trade this time for money and time for money and time for money. And you're bound by that for 30, 40 years. And then you're like, oh, now I get to retire. But in my profession, I own a couple businesses. One's a regenerative medicine practice. We see people all the time that are trying to live out their golden years, but they can't do anything because, hey, I got to retire. Good job. But I can't walk because I'm in pain so much. It's like, man. So I love that you're able to do this and also enjoy your life while you're young at the same time. I did want to ask you a question about, how do you separate the emotional connection to money? Because you're going to have times where that money is lost in an investment. I think that's one of the things that stops a lot of people in investing, is they have this emotional connection to it. How do you separate that? Or do you, I guess?
Yeah, I do. And that's something that I think trading did that for me, because I realized I had to sit down, after that whole year of losses, I had to sit down and really make a decision. Do I want to keep putting money into this and trying to be profitable, or am I just going to give up? And so I started analyzing what I was doing and what could possibly be going wrong. And so I realized that I was just being emotional about my trading or investments, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing, in my opinion. But trading, you can't be emotional. And I realized that literally, if you just look at any trader or any investor, the top trader in the world, if I believe I'm the top trader in the world, then my performance should be comparable to that person. So even if I look at the top trader in the world, even they don't win 100% of trades. So how could I expect, maybe as a beginner trader or an intermediate trader, how could I expect to be more profitable or percentage-wise more accurate with my trades than this guy? And so it started kind of opening up the idea of, okay, I don't have to be 100% accurate to be profitable. What if I just position myself risk management wise in a place where when I make a trade or I make an investment, let's say I can lose $1,000, but I can gain $1,500 or gain $2,000. So in this case, I could have a 1 to 2 risk to reward. If I'm risking 1,000, I can gain 2,000. So how many of my trades or my investments really have to be profitable in order to be profitable in that case? I think in that case, it's like 30%. Even if you're only 30% profitable, I need to actually run the numbers on it, but I think it's like 30%. If you're 30% profitable, you're still in net profit. So if out of 10 trades or 10 investments, you won 3 of them, right? So you gained $6,000, and then you lost the other 7. So you lost 7. So it'd be 40% profitable. So if you're 40% profitable, you're only winning 4 out of 10 investments or 4 out of 10 trades, but net in your portfolio, you're still profitable. So it becomes super easy to understand that it's just a numbers game. You don't have to get emotional about it at all, as long as you're managing your risk correctly. Now, if you're putting all your money in one investment or in one strategy, then it starts getting a little bit risky, and that's when people start getting emotional. But if you're well balanced and you're approaching it with the idea of, hey, I could either double my money or lose my investment, but I only have to be 40% profitable in my entire portfolio.
So basically you turned it into a math equation, which gave you more certainty, which then lowered the emotion. You're like, okay, so I mean, if this is lost, I should win overall.
Yeah, exactly. So the math equation helped for sure. I mean, I was still emotional at the very beginning. There's nothing that you can do, but going through that process multiple times, it definitely calms the nerves, and you can, you basically learn how to deal with it, because you learn that it's not an emotional decision at all. It shouldn't be boring. Choosing investments and doing all these things should be boring. It should feel like a job. If it's exciting or if it's scary, then you're doing it wrong.
Well, if it's exciting, it's the potential return. But if it's the scary part, it's because you really, you do have that emotional connection, or you're just, scared that what if I lose this, I don't know how to regain it. Grant Cardone talks about that a lot. He's like, the only reason you wouldn't invest in this thing is because you're scared that you wouldn't be able to regain the money that you potentially could lose. And I know in my case, I've invested into a lot of programs and educational things to where I could have that certainty, so where I could walk in and know, like, okay, I'm more educated in this than most, and therefore I can have that certainty. Cool, man. So any financial tips for the average individual? I mean, is there anything that you'd say, okay, this is how I would start, or what I would start doing or looking at, or whatever?
Yeah, well, technically I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give advice. But what I would say is every investor goes down a journey, and it's not an immediate thing. I don't know any successful investor, at least, who became profitable or successful overnight, right? It's a process that everybody has to walk through. And at the very beginning, you're just doing research. So we have a 4-step process that people follow. It's LIPS. LIPS. The first one is L. We're just doing learning. So we're learning about all the different things that could possibly happen as an investor. What kind of investments do I have available? What kind of investments can I afford? What kind of returns could they possibly give me? We're learning how to access capital. We're learning for different ways that we can optimize our credit, on how we can get 0% interest money from the bank. And that's a real thing. People are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars and 0% interest for their investments. And so we understand now that's the reality. Okay, so we move on to I. Now we start implementing. Okay, so we go to the banks, we get the money, and we start implementing into these different investments, and we start gathering maybe 3 or 4 different things in our portfolio. And then we move on to P. That's perfecting. Now we start finding ways that we can play around with our different investments and tweak them a little bit. Like, for example, let's say we're investing into Airbnbs, and we realize that every time we add a fire pit from Costco to our Airbnb, we're like, wow, I can charge $25 more per night. And so it paid for itself in 8 nights, or, whatever it might be. So finding stuff like that, those are little ways that we find that can optimize the income that we're making from that investment. And then you move on to the final stage, and that's scaling. So sometimes people scale too quick, too early on in that process. But scaling is really important after you've perfected your investment, because you realize what you like and what you don't like. Maybe you don't like Airbnb. Maybe the management company isn't very good. So you have to find ways to optimize what you already have, and then you scale it. And so as part of scaling, it's accessing more capital. At this point, you've gone through maybe a 6-month period. So now you can get access to more capital. That's firstly. But secondly, you can partner up with people as well. Let's say you want to buy an entire portfolio of Airbnbs, and there's somebody that wants to go in on that with you. So now you have the opportunity to access more capital, scale much quicker, and grow that whole portfolio.
That's great, man. That's great. I know we were talking before, but if people wanted to learn more about you, what you have going on, their processes, that sort of thing, you got something for them that they'd be able to get that access?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a passive income blueprint that I'm giving away for free. And they can find that on my website. It's investwithaustin.com. And it's going to take them to the page where they can download this guide, and I have a little webinar on there as well. So
yeah, I highly recommend it for sure. It'll open your eyes quite a bit. I think that you hit on a couple really major things. One of the things that I hear over and over again by a successful entrepreneur and investors is that it never happens overnight. The whole get rich quick thing, it's just not really a thing. You have to learn and you have to develop into somebody. And I also love that you said it's almost got to feel boring, almost like, hey, look, it's a numbers thing. How much can we get return off of this? And what are ways that we can perfect this return so where we have a higher return off the investment? I love that. And that's the way it should be, really, in pretty much any aspect in business. You want to celebrate the wins, but it should just be hey, it's very direct and it's very simple. It's just not easy for people to focus. You actually hit on a few things that a lot of people hit on. Focus, learn from your mistakes and use it. Leveraging your time. It's simple, but it's not easy. I mean, you hit on all those things, which is awesome. Anything else that you'd like to add, man, as far as adding value? How is the finances part, now that you've got that really under control, how's that affected your understanding about the other, pillars that we talk about with relationships or business/career, health, or faith?
I think it's helped me in all areas of my life, because I find that money, it gives you, I think, 3 things. So number 1, financial freedom. Number 2, time freedom. Number 3, geographical freedom. So once we've achieved these freedoms, now all of a sudden, everything else starts mattering a lot more, because it was important, but now it's amplified. So let's say I was a strong Christian, right? So now that my finances are in place and everything is good here, now I become an even stronger Christian, because that's who I was before. Now I'm able to amplify my impact. I have way more impact in all those other areas. With health, I can have a lot more impact. I can be a lot healthier if I was already a healthy person. Now, if I wasn't a healthy person, maybe it's just enabling my McDonald's addiction, right? Like, it's just amplifying who you already were. Money doesn't really change people. It just kind of shows who they already were, but maybe you didn't see much of it because it wasn't very amplified. It was diminished because they didn't even have the money to act on it. But now that they do have the money, you see who they were all along, just it's more obvious.
Yeah. I can tell you this, the interviews I've done over the years with different podcasts that I've been on, but also having my own now, is that successful people in general are healthier, more fit, active people. mean, for the majority of the people that I've talked to, and you go to a conference where there's hundreds of people that are very affluent, they're generally in shape, healthy, fit individuals, and I think that goes a long way, across all the pillars to really, have the energy and the vitality to do these things, to develop the life you want to develop. So what's in the future for you, Austin? What do you got coming up that you're excited about? That you're like, wow, this is my future and my vision of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so the biggest things that I'm working on right now is private jet charters. So one of the things that we do as investors is we buy jets together and then we charter them out. And so I'm aggressively growing that company, and just acquiring more jets and all that stuff. And it's super fun. That's something that I'm very excited about. But also adding to my portfolio just new investments that I've never heard of, that I've never tried before. So it's a very exciting time as I move more towards like private equity and stuff like that, as well as just scaling the investments that I have in multifamily, in private jets, aviation, helicopters, helicopter servicing, or airplane servicing as well, like pilot education. That's another really interesting one. So there's just a lot going on in those spheres specifically, and scaling that has been super exciting. And I like investments that are both fun and can produce a lot of cash flow. And at the same time, they're physical assets that they provide stability. And I know if I invest in this plane, it's not going to go anywhere. I can see it physically. I can track it on my phone. It's insured. It's a physical asset, but it still cash flows like crazy. So stuff like that is exactly what we specialize in.
I think you opened my eyes up to looking outside of the box as far as investing goes, because, I've heard about planes and things, but when you started talking about Airbnbs and how that can be not just owning one, but owning a block of them and controlling different things, and jets and I mean, all the things you just talked about right there, exotic cars, you don't think of those things as investments a lot of times, or at least the average individual doesn't. And so you really did actually open my eyes up to a few things like, oh yeah, that could be something. So I know you're so brilliant in this area. I'm learning a lot from you as well. And I really can't say enough about it, and to have people come and learn the information that you're sharing, for sure. Anything else that you'd like to, any final comments or any, more nuggets of wisdom? I've already got a whole page of information that I've written down that you've given that I'm excited to review. So anything else that you have,
No, the biggest thing that I would say is, I've seen more money lost by people who never took action than those who did. And maybe a couple of their investments didn't work out. It's an overwhelming majority of money is lost by people who missed out on stuff, who didn't take action, who decided to play it safe, but it actually didn't turn out so safe, and I see people making their first investment all the time. Almost every single day, we have somebody making their first investment. And so watching their journeys, and I find that, if they're sticking to the rules, if they're doing their due diligence, and they're managing risk, most importantly, I find that a lot of people can make their investment portfolio very, very profitable, as long as they're in it for the right reasons. They're not trying to get rich overnight, and they're allocating their finances correctly.
So, wow. And that's something you obviously help people with, just to understand how you're doing it. Obviously not as a financial advisor, but hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. If you want to join in, make your own decisions to join in, that's available for you. Man, awesome. I really appreciate it. Yeah. What'd you say?
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. We do daily coaching on all this. So
that's awesome. I really appreciate you being on the Fix Your BS podcast. The belief systems is something I like to end with, is just, how do you think belief systems, and the inner workings of the mind, the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, how does that play a role into all this?
Oh, it's extremely important. Our first coaching call every Monday is called Mindset Monday, because I believe that's the most important element out of this whole game. And if you don't have the right mindset, if I walk into a room of opportunity and there's opportunity to make $1 million there, if the person that comes with me, right, let's say two people, I have the right mindset, they have the wrong mindset. they could literally be blinded and not even see the same opportunity that I see because their mind wasn't ready for that opportunity and they just don't see it. And I see this happen all the time. And we're actually implementing a very, very strict process in our program on who we let in based on their mindset. Because if you have the wrong mindset, I'm sorry, you're just not going to be successful. There's absolutely no way you could possibly be a successful investor with the wrong mindset. Unless maybe by some stroke of luck, you accidentally made money. But otherwise, I see people sabotaging themselves. I see people failing to see opportunity, talking themselves out of investments, over-risking, all these different things. That only happens if you have the wrong mindset. So if you have an investor's mindset, then you can be successful.
That's great. All right, Austin, once again, appreciate you. Congratulations on all your success. And number one, yeah, and helping other people find success in their lives, which is, I think, a very, very noble thing. Go check that out, everybody. You can look Austin up on Instagram or any social media platform. Go to investwithaustin.com, sign up for his blueprint, and really get into his world and develop the financial practices that are going to make you have that freedom with the finances, your time, and your geography, which is what pretty much everybody wants, right? I want to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, where I want. Thanks again, Austin, for being on Fix Your BS. Until next time, everybody, fix those belief systems and build the life of your dreams in your relationships, your career, business, finances, health, and faith. Have a good one.